recording. And I'm going to take roll. Tommy Joe.
Present.
Diane Layden.
Present.
David Montoya.
Present.
Joseph Lopez.
Present.
James Stewart.
Present.
Debbie Strong.
Present.
Debbie Dodge.
Present.
Michael Wisner.
Present.
Elena Gacci.
Elena will be joining the meeting late, hopefully by video.
Okay, thank you. The chair will declare that there is a quorum, and we will undertake the business in the agenda. I would note that this is a meeting which features school safety, and if there's no objection, even prior to taking up the minutes, I'll turn the program over to David Montoya. I know that the sergeant has been waiting here a while and may have some other business, so I want to be judicious with his time. Any objection? Hearing none, let's proceed in that manner. Board Member David Montoya, please introduce the topic and speaker.
Sure, not a problem. So when I joined the board, it's like my third meeting, I think. This was right in the middle of Uvalde and the school shooting and questions about the response. And as a parent who has kids going to APS at Valley and at Albuquerque High, you know, I thought it would be a really relevant topic for the public to talk about the sheriff's office and how they respond to schools in the county and why what happened in Uvalde can never happen here. And in terms of response and the errors, things like that. And because Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office is such an elite law enforcement agency, I started trying to figure out who was in charge of school safety, who is in charge of the resource officers in the county, and who would be the expert, the subject matter expert, so that we could brief the public on school safety and protecting, you know, most important thing to me, and that's my children and other people's children. So I talked to Sergeant Pete Martinez, and he's with the Field Service Division, and he runs all of the resource officers and is the subject matter expert in the county on things like school shootings and active shooter drills and school resource officers. So wanted to turn it over to the Sergeant Martinez to talk a little bit about what the Sheriff's Department does, how they respond, and how they work every day tirelessly to keep our kids safe.
And I just want to welcome you on behalf of the board, Sergeant. And if you want to sit down, you're certainly welcome.
What would you guys prefer? Sitting down, standing up, sit down? All right. All right. So I'm Sergeant Martinez. I'm over our student support unit. We consist of 9 student support deputies and usually 2 DARE/GREAT instructors. However, APS being what they're in this current situation, trying to catch up with the last couple of years, haven't been requesting the DARE/GREAT, so we've kind of put that on hold. Those deputies are back in our field services, responding to regular patrol. We eventually will get that going again. But the 9 schools that we currently are at are 2 high schools, Atrisco Heritage Academy and Rio Grande High School. We're also at 7 different middle schools in the unincorporated Bernalillo County area. And what I have my guys do who are at the middle schools, they reach out to the feeder schools at the elementary level. And the elementary schools, if they have an issue that's a non-emergency or even an emergency, they should be contacting them. If it's an emergency, contact 911 first, but non-emergency situation, contact them before taking our patrol units out of service to do something that one of my guys can do. In regards to day-to-day safety, one of the biggest things that our guys do are a deterrent. Them being at the schools deters people from coming to the schools with these other issues, making sure that they are, the kids are safe. They assist with the traffic flow as students come to school. They make sure they're safe that way. They're assisting with our crossing guards. Our crossing guards are also under me, but that's kind of a little different. But the actual sworn, they are assisting with that type of stuff at school. They're making sure that if there's a rumor of a weapon, if there's any type of unsafe situation at said schools, they're investigating these things and making sure that the kids at the schools are safe. They assist with when schools lets out, they assist in traffic flow, things like that. And throughout school, they're also building that community relationship, making the students know that they have a mentor there that they can reach out to if they need something. A lot of these kids in some of these schools, they only have experiences of, the sheriff's office is here and it's because there's an issue. And when we're at someone's house, it's never for the best of issues. So this lets them see the sheriff's office in a positive light. Moving along to the more serious issues, you guys, Uvalde was brought up. When it comes to active shooters, there's the most current training, and you'll find a bunch of different acronyms, alert, ALICE, tactical this, that, or the other. The most current training for active shooters. If we're on scene already, we are heading towards the action, whether it's one of us, two of us. If we're on scene, we are heading towards where, if something's ringing out, screams, gunshots, whatever's going on, we are heading towards that, and we're going to neutralize that threat. If the action stops, then we're going to start methodically clearing. What that would be if we're heading down a hallway, we're hearing noises, we're still going towards where that noise was coming from, but now we've gone from something actively going on to now we're methodically searching. And we might be at that point waiting for backup, but if the action starts again, we're going straight towards that. I don't want to sound harsh or callous. We might be stepping over people that are injured. We're there to prevent further people from getting injured. If the action stops, we might be putting together medical teams where we have deputies with medical personnel where we're holding, making sure that these people are getting the care they need. But again, when the action is happening, our sworn, we're going where the action is happening. We're going to neutralize that threat and make sure that as many people are kept as safe as possible. Uvalde mistakes were made. I don't think anyone could say that was what should have happened. I know my guys. I know the sheriff's department. I know the command staff. I know the other supervisors. Those decisions would not be made that were made that day. If the subject does barricade and there is no action, we will treat it as a barricade situation. But as soon as, again, action starts, we're going to be breaking doors, making sure that we can make sure that everyone's safe and that the threat is neutralized. On that note, if the doors are locked or barricaded in some way, shape, or form, my guys, it's pretty convenient that our schools are separated into, we kind of have two schools that are close to each other throughout the North and South Valley. So I kind of call them our pair schools. And for every pair school, we were able to get entry kits. So if there is a issue at one school where there's a barricaded individual, we do have entry kits to be able to force entry from just up the road. If something happens and that one's not available, we have more available from us, and then our SWAT team will have them, different specialties will have them as well. Do you have any,
Are most of the schools here like open campuses or?
the APS has, it's a key card access similar to this building where they, for their, and it's, I think they have a main control as well, where they can let people in and out, things like that. But it is key card access. Two of our schools have the SES program, which is the social emotional support, the SES 2 program, which those kids are in the, that area of the school is locked to the rest of the students. They are the only ones in there, and because they have different needs and whatnot, they are provided those within that area. Also within our schools, APS police, we have a MOU with them, and they're sworn through us, but they are a separate agency by themselves. They provide officers, they have sergeants. They at our schools, I believe we have a sergeant at Rio Grande and an officer at Atrisco Heritage, as well as our guys. And they also have security aides as well, that assist with different, and then they have their patrol that might be going to different schools and at different times. Yes.
About how many threats have you seen in your experience at these schools?
Any threat we take seriously. So one of the newer things that has been very helpful, there is a Crime Stoppers number for the students to text in an anonymous tip line where little Billy has a knife today. So they'll text that in, and we're able to investigate that, see, is this a valid threat? Is this something that we need to shut down the school for? Is this, and both us and APS are alerted when that happens. As far as the number of valid threats, it's few and far between. Usually it's kids, I don't want to say kids being kids, but kids somewhat blowing a small rumor into a large thing, not realizing what they're doing. But I would rather them do that than have a big thing and we think it's nothing. So I would rather err on the side of caution. That's why I really appreciate this, the Crime Stoppers line. I think it's been a huge success. As far as we hear these things, we figure them out, we get them dealt with before they actually become a problem.
Mr. Wismer has his hand up.
Oh, okay. I think my question's quick and then Michael's quick. Now, you've mentioned having an MOU with APD.
APS.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's their police force?
That's their they have a specific police force. It's I mostly retired, both us and APD guys. They have some patrol, they have some assigned to specific schools. I know they have both officers, they have all the way up from security to, they have their own chief.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wismer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for what you do for our children in our community. It's very important. Resource officers are a very important role. I have two questions while I have the microphone. Number one is, could you tell us how you prioritize where you send your resource officers? Because obviously you don't have resource officers in every school, so you must have some sort of priority aspect that you use, or how you make that determination. And number two is, I recently saw a U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Program summary of law enforcement officers who are resource officers. And the thing that struck me as important and vital, and I'd ask you to speak to it, is that the resource officers get a lot of training in how to prevent the school shooting and very violent actions, like de-escalation techniques and some other things, other topics. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about that, because it seems like your resource officers are very well trained to handle less than lethal incidents as well, and possibly prevent an active shooter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So yes, we're in, as I stated, the 2 high schools in unincorporated Bernalillo County and the 7 middle schools. So the way that turned out was, we, in unincorporated Bernalillo County, that's what we have as far as high schools and middle schools. We don't have anyone specifically assigned to the elementary schools. There's a lot more of them, as you guys know. As you go up in school, kind of you get fewer schools, bigger populations within the schools, which is why, again, I have the middle schools when they have the when I instruct my guys to reach out to their feeder schools. So, for instance, Harrison Middle School is pretty close to Adobe Acres Elementary School. So the deputy who's assigned to Harrison knows the principal at Adobe Acres, and the principal knows that if they have a question, if they need something from the sheriff's department, that they reach out to that deputy, and then that deputy will route something through me if it's needing instruction, needing someone for a day for, oh, we think we're going to have additional parents here today. Can you guys have someone to come over? And we'll work that out. In regards to the other question, as far as the de-escalation skills, the less than lethal skills, our entire department, I think, is good with that. And our SROs are some of our most senior members of our department, who have gone through the same training, the CIT training, all the different de-escalation trainings that we have. And then specific to school training, I was just speaking with, I apologize, I forgot Jim earlier today. We are about to send 3 of our guys to a conference for SROs, where they're going to go through several different trainings for specific school resource. That it's going to be active shooter, it's going to be de-escalation, several different trainings that they can get all at this one conference. All our guys have been through different ones of these different conferences. I have every year we're going to keep on trying to send our guys to do these different conferences to make sure they stay up on this. So as far as that goes, our department, I believe, does really well with this type of stuff. And even more specifically, our unit is trained up a little bit further. So.
What about guns? Is it common to find guns on students and on campus? Can they bring guns on the campus?
No one can bring guns on campus aside from sworn law enforcement in the state of New Mexico. If they do, then it's a felony. So if we get, well, like I said, with the tip line, if we get anything in even mentioning guns, we
treat it as a threat.
We treat it as a threat, and we are investigating that. Us and APS both investigate that immediately. If someone says, oh, there's a threat of someone bringing a gun to school tomorrow, there's a large investigation into that. Beforehand, we talk to the student, family, see, do they have access to guns? Is there a valid threat here? Is there something going on? And the reason APS is involved, because if there's a suspension, something like that, we don't control that stuff. We are there for law enforcement purposes, not for administrative purposes for the schools. So if there's something like that, they can handle that route of, okay, we have this threat, someone's saying you said it, may have proof, we may not have proof, depending on what their administrative steps are, it might be, you are not welcome at school tomorrow, you are suspended, do not come.
We have Mr. Lopez with the question. He's had his hand up.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Lopez has had his hand up.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes, Judge Jewell, thank you. Sarge, I had a quick question. I think I know the answer to this question, but if you could please clarify, you're talking about the schools in unincorporated Bernalillo County, but the city limits is part of Bernalillo County's jurisdiction. So could you clarify for those parents who may be watching who kids go to school in the city limits, who covers those schools, what departments, law enforcement departments cover those schools, just so they might have clarification on that?
Sure thing. So again, APS police is gonna be at those schools, and APD is gonna be the one who responds for those schools mainly. If there's a major emergency and it comes out over our air, APD is there, APS is there, if there's a major incident, you could be assured that everyone who heard that incident is gonna be heading that way, lights and sirens, and we're gonna be there to assist in that. Recently, for example, there was don't know how to put that, because I don't know the full-on investigation to it, but at Volcano Vista, there was a call-in of a possible incident over there. I was there, state police was there, APD was there, APS was there. I saw a Rio Rancho police officer there. Bernalillo PD officer was there. Anyone who heard that was there, and they had gotten there quickly. It ended up being not what was called in. They deemed the scene safe. But know that if that does happen in the city, we are still going to be going. We are still going to, anyone who hears that, we're going to be there.
What is the protocol? Who is in charge? Okay, there were all these police there at Volcano Vista.
Okay.
Who was in charge? Is there a protocol for that?
So it depends on the situation. So if it's something like Volcano Vista, the initial scene, like I said, if there's action going on, the initial scene is whoever's there is in charge.
Got it. Okay.
Once it gets down to the nitty gritty of who's handling the investigations, who's handling this, that, or the other, if it's unincorporated Bernalillo County and it's a felony level matter, that's going to be us that handles that. If it's a misdemeanor level matter in all of Bernalillo County, including incorporated Albuquerque, then that's going to be APS is the ones who are going to handle that. If it's a felony that occurs within Albuquerque city limits, then it's most likely going to be APD that handles that. And that's going to be, I'm not fully versed on their policy and what they're doing currently. I know they are somewhat starting their SRO program back, but I'm not fully versed on exactly what they're doing.
Thank you.
Let me, this is just such an interesting topic, and I don't know how we're going to manage it, given the time constraints that we have. So I see those two hands, and a lot of those questions. I know we probably have some public that have questions, and I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. But let's just be mindful of the time. The two Debbies can address their.
Mine's a real quick question, I think.
Sure thing.
You said no one but law enforcement was allowed to have weapons at schools.
Correct.
Does that go for teachers also?
That does go for teachers as well.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering about the cell phone situation in schools, because I know that a lot of teachers or policies prohibit students from having or using their cell phones in school. But in a situation like an active shooting, to me, it would seem that this would be a resource that kids could use. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of an app, not just calling 911, but if an app could be on the phone to contact the sheriff's office or law enforcement.
So that would, they Not just 911, but like I said, they have that new, and it's a text, which that's what kids are doing more than calling.
Okay.
For the Crime Stoppers tip line. As far as APS's policy for cell phones, that's going to be a question for APS administration. I can't tell them that you should let them have cell phones or you don't let them have I'm not in charge of that. But with that, if they are allowed to have them during, say, passing periods, things like that, that's where they can do these. If they heard a rumor in class that a fight was going to happen, they heard a rumor in class that weapons on campus, they're given that information is given to us pretty quickly.
I get it that you don't have the authority to tell APS what policy to have, but if you did, would you recommend that students be allowed to have their cell phones with them for just this type of purpose?
I would say my personal recommendation, I think it's good for them
I
to
don't
have them
put you
when
in
the
a
school,
tough
when class isn't going for this type of situation.
Right.
But I understand the necessity of when class is going, they need to be focused on class, not on this magical box that gets them the world right in their hands.
Well put, Sergeant. And I'm not seeing any other hands.
I do have a Robert Harris,
Okay.
who's wanting
And
to come
Mr.
in.
Harris, if you're on specifically for this, are you allowing him to?
Yeah,
speak?
he's been elevated.
Mr. Harris, welcome. If you're on specifically for this, we'll allow your question or comment.
I think he's muted.
Yeah, you need to mute yourself, Mr. Harris.
No questions. I'm just watching.
Just
Okay.
watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge, may I make
Sure.
an editorial comment?
Sure.
My fellow board members, this is one of what Sergeant Martinez has addressed here is a significant issues for first responders. It's been my experience over many, many years is that when there's an incident, everybody and his brother shows up. And it's crucial that somebody establishes instant command right from the get-go and starts telling people what to do. The Uvalde, that's probably the biggest mistake that occurred there. And Sergeant Martinez, I'm hopeful that you and all these other agencies cross-train together
We do several different.
routinely, and so that when somebody shows up, you know who they are, you know what they do, you know what their skill sets are.
And to address that specifically, over last spring break, our department did a specific active shooter type training room clearing at Atrisco Heritage. I'm planning on doing that again over winter break this year, and I'm trying to get with APS to see if they would like to have some people come in, some of their officers, and see possibly if APD would like to do the same.
Good. And just, Jim is so so bashful. He probably didn't tell you he was a chief deputy in Texas. He may have, I don't know. But as he speaks, it's not from a position of being an ordinary citizen here in Albuquerque. He's got law enforcement experience. So thank you for that comment.
Appreciate that. No, I didn't mention that.
Okay. Well, I saw that badge and he's probably observant enough to have seen that badge as well, but I wanted the record to reflect that.
Thank you.
Something else, Vice Chair?
I just wondered if you have any general advice for parents on what they should provide for their children. I mean, should they get them, bulletproof vests? Like, what can parents do to help keep their children safe in school?
Play an active role. Listen to your kids. If there's a concern, address the concern. If it's something that needs to be brought to our attention, bring it to our attention. If it's something that they don't feel comfortable bringing to our attention, like I said, there's that Crime Stoppers tip line. That's another resource. They can bring it to their counselor's attention, and hopefully that counselor will bring it to our attention.
Like if somebody's being bullied, I guess you don't start out at the sheriff's office.
Right, and that would be, again, something to take up with, be actively involved in. if it's a situation where it does need to meet the level of law enforcement, let us know, because we can only help if we know.
Can you just tell us what the Crime Stoppers website is, if you know?
I apologize. I don't
That's
have it
okay.
off the top of my head. It's
Send it to me and all.
it's plastered all over both Rio Grande and Trisco Heritage.
And we'll do what we can to get that out there
Yeah.
as well.
And in that regard, Sergeant, I want to express before Mr. Montoya takes over here, we certainly appreciate the presentation and would like to be in a position to advocate for your needs. Can you
Absolutely.
identify some unmet needs that we can assist with?
You know, I think our department does a good job of meeting our needs. I think one of the things that I'm aware of and I try to be aware of on all levels is I know that this is a big part of what we do, but there's a lot of other stuff that we need, that other areas may need. Would it be nice to have a officer in every, or deputy in every elementary school? Yeah, but most of the time, is that deputy just gonna be sitting there playing dodgeball with third graders?
That'd be good.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think that would be great if we had the resources for it, but I understand resources are limited. I understand what we have is what we have. I know my guys will always say, oh yeah, we could always use new units. I'm like, units are units, guys. We're in talks with APS to do certain things. One of the things that my guys have brought up is getting rifle lockers for their rather than having them in their units in the rack in the units, having them in the school to where if something happens, it's readily available. But that's more of a APS. We have to work our way through them type issue. So.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. Mr. Montoya, why don't you close us, please?
I think that every law enforcement officer's mission is to serve and protect. And I think that there is no more important part of that serve and protect than to serve and protect our children. And that is what you do every day. And I'm honored that you took some time to spend with us and share with us some of the things that you're doing. And it's not, you're never going to make a TV show about school resource officers,
There's an idea.
But certainly it is, at least to me as a father, one of the most important things that I know that there are men and women like you watching over our children when we aren't there. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And anytime you guys need information, anything, feel free. I'll get with you with that number, and whatever you guys need, just let us know.
Well, again, thank you. And
We appreciate you. Thank you.
yeah, we know you're busy. You don't have to stay. You're welcome though. If you want to come. We love having you.
I'll get out of your guys' hair. I don't know. You might not like talking about certain things in front of me, so.
No. We don't like talking about it in front of you.
All right.
Thank you.
And I don't know if Chief Deputy Carrillo is still on. I think she had a limitation, but again, we'll prioritize her comments if any she has. Danette, you show her?
I don't see her present at the moment.
Okay,
She was earlier.
all right. So I thank the board for indulging that deviation from our agenda, and we'll return to the order of the day. Item number 3 is the consent agenda, and it calls for approval of our October 14, 2022 minutes. You all, I assume, received the minutes from Danette. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and properly seconded that the minutes of the October 14 meeting be approved. Any corrections, deletions, or other amendments? Danette, again, very thorough. I think it captures that kind of awkward discussion we had around on Patrol Live and the cars. So I don't know if you, in that context, felt compelled to give us the breadth that you gave us. I'm almost embarrassed by some of the stuff. Did I really say? Let's see, where's that at? I think, to be honest with you, did I really say that, guys? I just assumed that not be there, but if that's the case,
You sound like Pretty Harry or something like that. Or something. I was like, Judge.
yeah, that always used to bother me in court when somebody would say, well, to be honest with you, well, you just took an oath. I'll be honest with you. Anyway.
I'm taking you back to your days at district court, okay?
If you all are ready for the question, those in favor of the minutes say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The minutes then will stand. Our next agenda item is public comment, and you've identified Mr. Harris. Danette, is there anyone else from the public?
Nope, no one else.
And I'm assuming nobody is here to substitute for Chief Deputy Carrillo. I skipped over that item.
No, nobody is here. I'm assuming they're probably all in the same meeting shift to be in, so.
All right. So we'll then get to the meat of the agenda that comes under, well, actually, there's an item of old business before we get to the meat of the agenda. And that's update on the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. Kudos to Dr. Layden for taking the lead on that. I can report to the board that Dr. Layden composed a letter for my signature thanking the League of Women Voters and those chiefly responsible for that forum. I thought that it was an excellent forum, and as Dr. Layden so adequately expressed in the letter, a public service to the citizens of Bernalillo County. And so, is there any other comment or discussion on that forum?
Other than I thought it was very well done, and
Yeah.
I pay attention to a lot of that stuff, but it was informative to hear the three of them talk, so kudos, Professor.
And if you all want to know precisely what the letter says, I'm pleased to have it shared with you. You know, I think she expressed the thanks of this board through my signature and tried to capture those chiefly responsible for that forum. And I'm pleased to have it go out. Vice Chair knows that I get a little bit compulsive. I won't say anal compulsive about it. And so I'm looking at, well, should this be a semicolon or should this be so
I was actually very favorably impressed by that dilemma that you had about having a semicolon or not.
Okay. Well, those are the struggles that
Well, the struggle is real.
at any rate, I will then, Danette will put that on letterhead. Our vice chair was good enough to correct our letterhead, so hopefully we'll have that letter out shortly. But again, thank you, Dr. Layden, for all you did to bring that about. I think in your draft of the letter said you hoped that they would do it in 2026. I said, I hope they would continue to do it. I mean, I don't know off election cycle what more they can do, but certainly in future elections, I'd like to see a forum like that. And I will say then that the election is over, that we have a sheriff-elect. His name is John Allen. I, on behalf of the board, did communicate with Mr. Allen, inviting him to this meeting. He thanked me for that communication and said he was unavailable, had to be out of town, but looked forward to working with this board, unless that's him coming now. And so I didn't have time to get your permission to communicate with him, but thought that you all would want me to do that. And so it's done. And hopefully we will start out on the right foot with this new sheriff. He certainly seems circumspect and contemplative. And as you all learned, Chief Deputy Carrillo is now in the throes of transition. So we look forward to having dialogue with the new sheriff, with those that he appoints to represent him before us, and continuing on our mission to give advice and review. So if there's nothing else on that, any comments on the election, or anybody want me to disclose my other votes, or?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, the new sheriff has expressed his support for what we're doing as a board, and he views it as very important. I had a discussion with him, and he says that he'd even give Judge Jewell an office right next to his. So he thought that would further our mission. So I
Hey,
think
there's an idea.
Apparently he hadn't seen the office I have now.
But
My wife says it's a hazard.
But he
Dangerous zone.
has nothing but good things to say about the job that you've done, and look forward to working on this.
Well, I thank him and you for those comments. Anything else on that? Okay, now we can get into new business, and let me say that, guys, I am always double booking myself. So I have a couple of layers of conflict that will cause me to have to go early, and I'm going to turn over the meat of those recommendations for our vice chair to shepherd us through. I'll just say, one is a Zoom CLE, continuing legal ed event. Years and years ago, I founded an organization with some other people, my wife included, New Mexico Black Lawyers Association. And it's the 40th anniversary of that, and the CLE regards that organization. But in the midst of all that, my granddaughter breaks her arm, breaks her wrist, and is getting her pin out. And that should be happening right now. And understanding that I wouldn't be there as she got her pin out as she requested, I said, well, we'll do something nice afterwards. So I'm going to try to catch up with my granddaughter and make sure she knows her grandpa's concerned. So if you all don't mind, I will turn the chair over to the vice chair. She may get us through this process.
Very good. All right, unless anybody has any objections to proceeding this way, what I thought might be helpful before we do anything about voting is just go through the summary of the recommendations to the sheriff's office, and if we have time, the county commission, and just get a sense of who is okay with each recommendation and who is not. And does anybody have any problem with proceeding that way?
Madam Vice Chair, I wondered if you might share, I know you've had kind of continuing dialogue with Chief Deputy Carrillo, and she made some requests with respect to our process.
Yeah.
I know you got her for the sheriff a copy of a draft of our, and so what's the status of that?
What she communicated to me, and I can forward to everybody her email, which I got, I guess, a couple of days ago, is that Sheriff Gonzalez's view is that since a new administration is coming in, he doesn't want to comment on the report. Other than what she did say, there were a couple of things that were either changed or incorrect in the report. And one of it was that there was a reference to an article that I can't remember where it came from, but it was saying
Crime
that
stats, wasn't it?
was
Crime stats
possibly, I
getting turned over to the FBI.
right, yeah, oh, yes, it was having to do with NIBRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System.
Yeah.
And this article had said that BCSO did not submit data to NIBRS, to the FBI, for its crime statistics, and that in fact is not correct. And in fact, since 2022, BCSO has been in compliance with and submitting data to NIBRS.
2022 is this year.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2020. So for 2 years, that's been, they have been doing that. So I've deleted from the report any kind of criticism based or recommendation based on that. And I've deleted the reference to the article. And in fact, put in here what Chief Carrillo told us, that since the summer of 2020, BCSO has in fact been submitting data to NIBRS. So I think that's also a very positive development. So, all right, does anybody have an objection though to proceeding?
One more
Sure.
preliminary matter, Madam Chair. I think you found out that the timetable is a little different than
Oh.
envisioned.
Right. We do have to submit the report to the county commission in January, but it's at the last meeting that we have in January. So it doesn't have to be January 1st. So if need be, as Jeanette offered, we can schedule a meeting for January 31st, but it would probably be better to get it settled prior to that. But it does not have to be January 1st. And given that we're going to have a couple of people, I think Elena Giacchi won't be here, possibly until about 12:30, and Judge Jewell has to leave. And I think it's important that everybody have a vote on these issues. I think that although we can act with just a majority if we needed to, I would like everybody to be here and have a chance to vote and express an opinion. So that said, are we okay to just go through these recommendations and just, show of hands? The first one, let's see, it's on page 4 of my draft. So it's disclosure of crime statistics and response to media requests. And I don't know, I think everyone's had a chance to read it. Do you think, I don't think I need to read it. I've
This
taken,
draft 10,
no, 11.
I don't know if I ever got draft 11.
You got draft 11. Everybody. got it.
I checked, I didn't see it, but anyway,
Well,
whatever.
It's
I've got so many of these
Let
things.
me share with you.
I could just go by what's on the agenda.
I've read it. I
All
got
right,
it.
well,
The meat of it though is there.
Okay.
First, I want you to have an opportunity. I mean, the
this is.
agenda.
It's funny, because I just Googled it, I didn't
This
find
is.
her. Okay, all right, I can look at what he has.
You need to get to page 4.
Well, let me just read it. BCSO should update its current
You
quarterly
know what? I've updated it since then
since 11.
because to
Okay.
take out the reference to NIBR. So why don't I just read what I have?
Please.
Okay. BCSO should update its current quarterly posting of crime statistics on its website to a more timely and immediate reporting schedule in line with the practices of other law enforcement agencies such as APD. In addition to posting information on social media, BCSO on a regular and timely basis should release information concerning crime statistics to the public and the media and respond to media requests without first requiring an IPRA request, subject to the need for confidentiality so as not to jeopardize any ongoing investigation, legal proceeding, BCSO personnel, or members of the public. So who, just show of hands, who is in agreement with that? All in agreement, just raise your hand. Okay, I see Michael Wismer and Joseph Lopez have their hands up, as well as, did you?
I did,
Oh, okay, so we're okay with that.
So you
but we're not
probably-
voting, we're just taking.
Right, but I just want to
Oh,
get a sense, since some people indicated that they,
Are we gonna go back and? We're
sorry.
gonna go back and make motions, so we're doing this one time through and then we do it again? Or
Well,
can we just?
because not everyone is going to be here for this whole thing, so I'm thinking maybe we should take a vote instead
On each
at our
one.
next meeting. But I've been having correspondence with certain people who feel that none of this has ever been discussed, and apparently, they haven't been focusing on reading this as the 11th.
I didn't
round.
say it hadn't been discussed. I said it hadn't been voted on as a recommendation.
Right,
That's quite all
That's a
right.
different
That's-
thing.
okay,
Madam Chair, looks like you have
that's in agreement.
practically unanimity on,
Okay.
on that. If you'll poll, Elena Giacchi. Word out.
I actually know, have spoken to Elena, so I know that she supports it, but we don't have, she has to say that. I don't think I have the authority to express her view. Okay, conflict of interest in investigation of officer involved shootings, that's number 2. That has not changed, so does anyone want me to read it, or can we just?
This is a carryover from last year, guys. We've had this issue. Unless somebody has changed their opinion on it, we previously voted on this and it was reported out last year. So, and I
Okay,
don't
so
know if you're calling for motions, but
I'm
certainly.
not calling for motions, I'm just saying, who, actually, let's do it this way. Is there anyone that does not agree with recommendation number 2? Raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hand. Oh, Joseph?
I just had a quick clarification because this may have happened before I joined the board, but was this discussing the whole process of conflict of interest with investigations, or was this more of the person who communicates what's going on with the investigation to the family? Because I remember hearing that discussed in one of the meetings, and I'm not sure if that's part of this recommendation or if that was set aside on another topic.
I believe the concern that was expressed here and has been discussed periodically in this board, both before and to a certain extent since you joined, but probably the bulk of it was before you joined, that, in the case of an officer involved shooting, there is a potential for an appearance of a conflict when the lead investigative agency is also the shooter's agency. And from the process that was described to us, though, and this was, I believe, before you joined the board, it's actually a much more collaborative process of the 3 agencies involved than is indicated by the term lead agency. So all we're suggesting is that term be defined or changed in some way so that it's clear this is really a collaborative effort.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
All right, so I think, okay, so we're okay with that. What about number 3, edited video footage?
Please read that.
Okay, it's short. BCSO's default policy should be that complete body-worn camera and other video records be released as long as release does not interfere with a law enforcement proceeding, constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, or fall into one of the exceptions listed in section 4A of this report. Policy should clearly state the process for responding to public and media disclosure requests, including the review and redaction process. So,
What's in 4A?
well, you have it.
Well, no, I don't,
Oh.
because, okay.
Okay,
It's on page where?
I haven't figured out how to do a table of contents yet, so I don't have the page numbers on that. I'm hoping for Danette's intervention.
I have it on,
I could help with the
So
table
can
of
we-
contents. I can help.
Oh, great, okay,
I'll-
great,
We
too.
all work
The
together.
more, the better.
I have it on page 20 of draft 11.
Okay, good. All right, so,
And what the comment, and it was number 3, right? Yeah.
yes,
It's the edited video footage, right?
right, so this gives a little
Says
more,
Diane Layton brought to the SORB's attention on 4/19/22. I'm sorry, A 4/19/22 Albuquerque Journal article by Matthew Risen entitled BCSO.
no, but, I'm sorry, that's
not-
the background part, but the actual recommendation discussion is, or is on page, I have on page 22, 3. Release of body worn camera and other videos,
Oh, yeah.
okay? Debbie Dodge, do you have that?
But I don't have 11, I have 10, so I'm,
Right, you're about the same.
because I know at one point there was a lot of what they should do.
Right, and we
Like they
Discussed
shouldn't
that.
do people if they didn't want to be done and things like that, but is that
Correct.
still in there?
well, why don't I read it so that we're all on the same page? So the default policy should be that complete body worn camera, dash camera, and similar video records be released publicly as long as release does not interfere with a law enforcement proceeding, constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, jeopardize an ongoing investigation, or endanger any member of law enforcement or the public. SOP, which is standard operating procedures, should clearly state the process for responding to public and media disclosure requests, which specific members of BCSO are authorized to make the decision to redact video, and that redaction can only be done upon agreement by 2 such authorized BCSO members. Simultaneously with the release of a video that has been edited/redacted, BCSO should release a thorough explanation of the reason for the redaction and a statement as to when/if the edited/redacted material will or is expected to be released in full. Okay?
Mm.
So anybody who has a objection or disagreement with that, raise your hand. Sure.
So just for understanding, for some reason, we thought you guys were gonna discuss a breakdown of crime stats in comparison from this year compared to last, so that's not the case right now. I'm just taking notes here, so basically
How can the
just the
bathroom?
way BCSO should,
David.
release information. Yeah, as far as crime and doing it in a timely manner, so that's the point.
Good.
And freedom, I'm sorry.
No, that's some of the point, and the other point is just that if redacted video is released, that there should be an explanation for the reason, whether that's, to protect a source, to protect an ongoing investigation, whatever the reason to protect, the sheriff's office's methods, whatever the reason, it should just be explained. And there should be a statement that of when the sheriff's office expects that it will be able to release
So
that bit.
in regards to the video footage from BCSO, it is okay for them to release this publicly as long as it doesn't endanger the situation or anyone or here. So you guys, so was that not the case before, or this is what you guys kind of?
I want to interrupt here and say, this is not an appropriate sort of environment for this type of a machines on camera. This is not a good sound bite. So let's let the meeting continue and we can do this off camera, but we
No,
can't
but
have a.
I guess we got confused because we were told there's a breakdown of crime stats that will be discussed, but I see that's not the case, right? You guys
No.
are just going over how things need to be released and how things need to be taken care of. This is not a soundbite by the way. So we were told, this would be a breakdown of crime stats, so that's why we were here in regards to perhaps the comparison from this year to last. If that's not the case, that's totally fine. So I just want to make sure that we're both on the same page in regards to what you're talking about.
Sure, let me just explain. We are,
Thank you.
by, under the ordinance that created our board, we are obligated every year to submit a report to the sheriff's office and the Bernalillo County Commission. And that report is authorized to contain advisory recommendations to either of those entities. What we're discussing now is what advisory recommendations belong in the report. So none of this is carved in stone yet. We want to reach consensus, and our preference is to have unanimity on our recommendations. So that is all we're doing. So this is just a draft of proposals.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure. Okay, so I didn't see any opposition to that recommendation. Is that correct? This is, the release of body worn camera videos.
Right.
Okay, I think everyone's okay with that. Then we have, I will clarify, 3 proposed recommendations concerning standard operating procedures. And the first is just that BCSO's website should provide a simple form to allow public comment on SOP comparable to that on the APD Albuquerque Police Department website. It's just a simple form that is on the Albuquerque Police Department website, and it seemed to us, Jim and I, reviewing SOP as the SOP subcommittee, that would be an appropriate thing to include in SOP, as opposed to, something saying that the public should contribute to the decisions on SOP, on an active, ongoing basis. Rather, just give the public an opportunity to comment, but not a vote on that. Okay, anybody have any opposition to that? Raise your hand. Okay, so we're all in agreement with that. Use of force and duty to intervene. This section is going to be revised because we have some new information from Chief Carrillo about the specific training that BCSO gives concerning the duty to intervene. And this training has been ongoing since at least 2016. And so I want to have a chance to review what Chief Carrillo has sent to Jim and to me and include that in the report. And I think that's a very positive development. So I don't think we need to go into that one right now. And I'll distribute the revision will be in the next draft, which will include a clean copy and a red line showing what's been changed from the draft before. And anybody who doesn't understand what's what in the draft, just please reach out to me and I will do the best I can to explain it.
I'm gonna get with you after, because I checked, I still didn't get 11, so I don't know what the problem is. Anyway,
Okay,
so we'll talk
yeah,
after.
And in this pause, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
thank you.
Happy
I'm
Thanksgiving.
thankful to be a part of this effort.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving to you
Thanksgiving to you and your family.
and good luck to your granddaughter.
Well, thank you.
All right. And actually, I was in a different section, so I'm a little bit. Hmm? Oh. I didn't realize that was a reporter. I thought she was a member of the public, but whatever. I don't think that we've said anything that was incorrect, so.
She just needed clarification of the meeting because they got
Right, okay.
some wrong direction.
So, this next one, I think probably Judge Jewell will want to weigh in on, so we can just kind of quickly go over it with the understanding that he may have some refinement of it. But the contract signing procedure for BCSO, because the On Patrol Live contract was signed without going through the county legal review, which BCSO is allowed to do. They're not required to get anybody's sign off, but it would certainly have been beneficial to have a lawyer's view of that contract. And in fact, the contract has now been changed somewhat, although not addressing any specific concerns that are listed in this report, except for the fact that it now terminates on December 31st, 2022. So
It's a moot point almost.
it's a moot point, but yes.
Yeah, I
Diane.
have a comment. Maybe you all know this, but at one of the forums, it may have been the radio forum, or the one the league did. John Allen said he didn't want to do that with
Right.
on patrol. We all know that. Okay, so this is going to go away. That's at least what he said.
Well, I think, yes, the issue will go away but my concern is that since what this report reflects is the past year's proceedings,
Right.
that, and in the interest of giving a roadmap to
Right.
the incoming sheriff, we can still express this concern and then, and also recognize that the problem has gone away in a sense, because, I mean, sheriff or sheriff to be, Allen hasn't yet officially been able to cease all of this, but the contract itself ends.
Okay, the recommendation includes the statement that an attorney should look over the contract before it's signed.
Well, prior to signing legal review. As opposed, yeah.
I agree. And Jim told us at the last meeting, I believe, that in Texas, sheriffs don't have that authority to sign contracts without the county. Now,
Here they do. They definitely, Daniel Roberson specifically, I asked him that question and he told me they absolutely have the right. So there was nothing done that was improper in terms of
no,
procedure.
I wouldn't.
But on the
Is
other
that
hand,
statewide?
that I don't know. I just asked him about Bernalillo County.
Okay, legal review.
All right, so my sense is that there's no one opposed to that
No.
concept.
I don't know if it's in our purview, would be my only.
Well, it's a
And then, I
recommend,
mean, judge will-
yeah, I know that his, what he's expressed to me is just that this issue is very likely to not be ongoing once the new sheriff comes in, so.
I think Mr. Waismore has his hand up.
Michael?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Given the discussion about the new sheriff's attitude towards this program, I would like to suggest that we recommend stand down on the current contract and review all of the input that we received. And I'm sure Danette can provide all of that input, pro and con, as part of his analysis as to whether to proceed with this program or not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Michael, just to clarify, are you saying that you think in the report we should attach somehow all the comments we received? Because I think the comments we received were not to do with the contract, obviously, but just to do with participation in the show. And I think those were really quite mixed. I think
Well,
there
I
were
was-
probably an even number of people pro and con. I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was more speaking to the issue of continuing with this video ride-along program. I think it would be,
I think that's number 7.
all of the
Yeah,
input
we're
that
not
we
there
have.
yet.
Okay, we're not there yet. Sorry.
Right.
Okay. All right, so as far as contract signing procedure, it sounds like everybody here is okay with that, and we need to get Judge Jules' input, so that's fine. Okay. Then the last one is operations area commands, which the SOP states that there are 3 area commands, north, south, and east. And it seems that it would be helpful just to provide a map of those 3 area commands. So that's that suggestion.